How to make learning fun and interesting. Love your subject. You can teach a student a lesson for a day, but if you can teach him to learn by creating curiosity, he or she will continue the learning process as long as they live on this planet. And that's why this evening, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a special interaction, deliberations, and we have got Madam Anju Mehtaji, the principal DCG International School District Patiala in the state of Punjab. She has an experience of over 28 years in the education field. Her core skills are communication skills, team building, interpersonal skills, and of course, educational leadership. As a pedagogical leader, she believes in collaborative learning, and that's why, by continuously engaging in learning ourselves, she believes that we provide a nurturing space to our students. She has mentored various government and private schools in beautiful city called Chandigarh, that's a union territory, under the soft skills training. She had the pleasure to hold sessions on communication skills for the students of Punjab Engineering College. Abbreviated form in Chandigarh is called PEC. She has been felicitated by the Government of India as well as on different various platforms for many innovative methods of pedagogy. As an educator by choice, she has been closely associated with various community outreach programs. She strongly believes in the inculcation of scientific temper and adoption of technology to prepare the students to be global citizens. She has been awarded on many platforms for being an innovative leader. She is an administrator, educator, mentor, motivator, and a lifelong learner. So, ladies and gentlemen, join me in extending a very warm welcome to Anju Mehtaji, and we are moving on the journey. Let's give students the power of learning. Hearty welcome. Pleasure to have you, ma'am. As it's indeed a great, great pleasure. And thank you very much for sparing your time and to be with us this evening. It's indeed a great, great privilege. And all our brothers and sisters, those have joined. Now, floor is yours. How would you like to give the power to the students for learning? How would you like to take the journey forward? All yours.
Thank you, sir. A very good evening to everybody, all the viewers, especially to sir. This is my second session with sir. I had been a part of a panel discussion earlier, and I've always felt that you tend to learn so much when you're in the company of the experienced people, because it's no like stopping any learning whenever you're interacting with people who are well versed with so much that they're doing. And I must say, ICSI is doing such a great job, sir. E-Gurukul Gyan Yoga, that's amazing. Equal opportunity to every child. We've been talking about that since last 1 year. And I think, yes, we have to go back to the basics. And that is why today we need to take up this topic of the power of learning. And before I begin, I must say that it's been a pleasure for me to have been almost been a part of education sector for almost 28 years now. And I always feel that when you're working with children, there's such a delight because you keep learning something or the other with them. Their, energy, their creativity, their insights, that can give another perspective to all adults, no matter how seasoned they might be. So this experience over the years has also taught me one thing, and that is that all children have a wonderfully innate capacity to learn just about anything if we provide them with the right environment. So I'm very happy with the NEP coming into the picture. It's like a promissory note, as I did state earlier also, because the traditional educational setup revolved around, I think, predominantly just the teacher would, speak in the classroom where the children are allowed to sit in the rows facing her, and all the while they're simply listening to her. So they're the passive recipients. That was the traditional educational setup, which is even going on till date. So thankfully, things are becoming better. They're changing for the better, and there are new insights on how to ensure stronger and better learning. So teachers have been the COVID warriors. I think they're doing an amazing job. They have maximized the learning process over the last few months, 16 months almost now. And we this is very important how we teach and how the process of learning takes place, because I think in the 21st century this is perhaps the most desirable kind of quality, that is the person's ability to learn quickly. You can't be receiving things passively. You have to be on your toes, you have to learn, you have to adapt, you have to be flexible, because times in itself are very, very uncertain. We've seen how we were caught unawares last year when COVID did hit us. The education system did seem very fragile. It's a good thing that human resilience you could say, overcome all these kind of negatives, and we could still deliver. So education system can profoundly impact the way children become lifelong learners, I believe. And the thing that is required is radical rethink on the way that we cultivate the creativity, as you said, sir. Creativity is very important. And we need to acknowledge all types of intelligence. So when we know that the kids, they have the ability to learn, and we've also seen that they're the fastest learners. You give them anything, they'll be the first ones to pick up either a language. You give them any musical instrument, they would be very quick to learn that. You tell them any sport. You see the students working on their technology. I think they are far more savvier than the adults. So the reason why that happens is because of their curiosity, their focus, and the kind of playful method that they indulge in. So it kind of gives them the joy. And when they're joyful about doing something, I think it stays etched in their memory for long. When we talk to the kids about the rhymes, I still remember, we remember our rhymes, even if it was done by the repetition or the tables or things like, whatever you did, I think till age 8, 7, 8 to 9, it still stays with you. Maybe what you do in college might not be there. You don't retain that. So I think art of learning is basically the art of attention and observation. Very important. You see children who are attentive and observant, and that can happen only if they find the subject or the content engaging. So if there is boredom, then it's going to kill the very creativity that we want them to be partaking of. So children love a class that stimulates them, and it kind of offers them something that is beyond the confines of the books. So this is especially true, I believe, in the present times when remote learning has become the norm. So digitization was definitely the Eureka moment last year. And we see that, if a teacher is just reading out from the book, children would definitely be bored because that's already available to them. So how do you kindle their curiosity? So if the child is listening to a teacher online, we must remember the teacher is competing with everything that's on the internet. So their teaching has to be far more interesting, and it has to have some kind of an element that makes the children listen to them. So because the teacher's interaction with the students will definitely facilitate or hinder their ability to either acquire the content and skills or the learning abilities, or it will, it depends whether they're going to learn it or it's going to become a block. So how a teacher presents the information and displays the kind of mannerisms that are required, it defines the student is going to connect with them. So if they're able to connect with them, I believe they're able to learn the thing, and it becomes a part of their subconsciousness for long times to come. And I absolutely endorse that teachers have been doing amazing work. But all said and done, we also need to know that this is not enough. Teachers have to scaffold their learning every now and then. And they have to find ways to augment the students' learning in ways that make them see the relevance and significance of what they are teaching. So if I give an example for, trigonometry, sometimes in class 9th and 10th, children do find it very tough. So if you tell them the real context in which this topic is going to be beneficial to them in real life, I think they find it far more relevant. And that's how they will be able to kind of understand it. So, we have to hold the students' attention. We have to train ourselves well. We have to give them some actionable strategies that can build their cognitive capacity. And at times, I do hear teachers say that, ma'am, we've been working very hard, but things have not gone the way we wanted. They're not falling in place. So it's okay. I always believe that if the plan doesn't come together, we need to just change the plan, but not the goal. And the goal is to impart that learning to them. So we find ways other than what we might be practicing. So yes, learning should be a continuous process whereby we keep reinventing and growing through our own experiences. So last 1 year, perhaps we've learned the amount of technology that had it been normal times, I don't think it would have been feasible even to believe that everybody could have learned the amount that they learned. So, you got to have an open mind. As I say, whatever you want to receive, you have to have an open mind. And how do we ensure that, children also learn whatever they learn, it becomes a part of their long-term memory? I think any information that is connected to some emotion, it will always become a long-term memory. So, like I said about the rhymes or the tables or the stories that they have heard, any kind of a comic or any cartoon that they've seen, that stays with them for long. Why? Because they're with it. They're enjoying it. So they get that joy and pleasure. So if learning also becomes a joyful experience, as CBSE has been talking about, NEP also talks about, I think we are going the right path. Hopefully it gets implemented also in the right spirit. And so the way we can maximize this learning process, even while we are using the digital resources, as you said, sir, there are a lot of places even now where we see a huge digital divide. A lot of children who do not have the access to any of the digital resources. So we can't let them be, because after all, they are going to be a very major chunk of our economy. So if we let them be, then that means we are going to be compromising with the economy that is going to be evident in a few years to come then. So the trend is that we have to have a learner's mindset, but we need to ensure that this education needs to be reaching every child, be it in rural or urban setup. And that is why, sir, I felt your e-Gurukul Gyan Yoga, that's amazing. If it reaches every corner and it kind of brings education to every home, nothing like it. Because everybody, it's a fundamental right. So every student needs to partake of that. One more thing I believe is that COVID-19 has resulted also in us experimenting more with what really matters. And therefore, there has been a perceptive shift from rote-based learning to competency-based learning and project-based learning, which is amazing. I personally believe that, learning by doing is very important. And this shift will kind of make us move away from that head-heavy theoretical education that we so harp about. And learning can become integrated in every subject and every aspect of our daily lives if it becomes a kind of a habit. So that's very important. And one another thing that I would like to talk about is how technology is definitely making us resourceful. And I think we've not had any gap as such. Learning has not stopped last year, even though it did not reach everybody as we wanted, but it did not stop. So it did a good kind of we could do a good job, So children have had access to good content. It gave them a little more geographic flexibility, and there was no constraint of any kind. And I felt that when you are taking technology or digitization, it kind of makes the children understand the concepts and topics better, because they get a 360-degree understanding of that. And also, this also allows a kind of collaborative learning, when we can go to any, the world becomes a village. So like I said, globalization, as we call it. So global and local merging together. And collaborative learning is another very important aspect. I feel that would do very well to make sure that learning becomes inherent and innate part of every child. Because when you're brainstorming, when you're coming together with your ideas, you are involved, you are interacting. And when you're interacting, that means you're using your mind. You're not passive. You're actively engaged. So learning definitely happens when there is collaboration, and every child gets a platform to express his or her ideas or opinions or whatever he has to say. So any activity that is exploratory, I believe, any activity that is more of hands-on learning experience, it is going to make any dull chapter, any drab chapter even far more interesting. So that's the purpose. How do you make learning interesting? How do you make it more receptive? So practical application or experiential learning, as we are talking about in NAP also, it kind of brings that element of enthusiasm. It brings an element of challenge because you're thinking out of box. You're going beyond that cocooned approach, and children look forward to that because then they know that it's okay, it's on them, and they have to prove it to everybody that they can do it. So yes, that's very important. And I was reading something a few days back. Of course, when you're doing more, you're also kind of spurring neurogenesis. Now, this is something I think every teacher should know. When they say that, there's so much to learn and there's so much that we are doing, why should we be like, burdening the kids? I don't think children are burdened when you make the same chapter, same content, and same topics far more interesting by using different techniques. So neurogenesis is like the generation of the new neural cells. That happens when more and more hands-on learning takes place, when children are doing from their own, like on their own rather than just receiving something. And that also increases neuroplasticity. And that is the new neural connection. So when people say that Einstein was perhaps very intelligent with a great IQ, it's not that he had a big brain. Rather, he had a smaller brain as compared to any other human. What he was doing was he was experimenting. He was doing a lot of practical experimentation, lot of work that enabled him to think and go beyond. So that neural connectedness was definitely high, and that is what we are looking in for the kids today. So if we see that we were caught on a wrong foot last year when we were not aware of the COVID hitting us, but this uncertain world is going to be there. These things can recur. So what we have to build up in our kids is the competencies and the skills, and not just the bookish knowledge. And for that, we need to ensure that they are kind of like know the critical skills, the creativity that would make them survive these uncertain times. So they need to be flexible and adaptive. And for all this, there's another thing that you have to go beyond the books. Learning happens beautifully if children are engaged in physical activity. So as your body moves, your brain grooves, they say. So more the physical activity, the more the mind opens up and it sharpens, and the cognitive capacity also increases. Definitely, yes. I would say that should be done. And another very good thing that we've been doing since last year or two is the integration of different subjects while you're teaching a topic. So blending of 4 art domains like dance, theatre, music, visual art to teaching difficult subjects. It makes it far more interesting, engaging. And people used to talk about STEM earlier. We're talking about STEAM these days. So yes, integrating art in any of these subjects is amazing, because I think when you're studying a subject in isolation, it sometimes drains the interest and takes away any element of enthusiasm that you might be looking forward to. But when you are adding some kind of art or any kind of some subject that kind of enhances your understanding of that topic, then I think that understanding stays with you for long. So whether you're using dance or theatre or music or visual art, like for example in science and all, if we are drawing, let's say if we are studying something, let's say anatomy, or we're doing some plant part, and they are made to see the real thing and draw that, and then have an abstract form of it to kind of give vent to how do you kind of draw the functions of that part in your own possible way. Imagine what does that thing, or how does that thing become life, when you give it some functionality. So how do you integrate those domains into your serious subjects also makes those subjects interesting. And for that, you need to have a very ingenuous kind of a thinking, out of box thinking. And that is what we want to build up in the kids, out of box thinking. We don't want them to regurgitate whatever is written in the books, because that is there for everybody to see. We need them to kind of think, because children otherwise also have extraordinary capacity to innovate, sir. I always believe that they are far more creative. You let them be, and they can completely surprise you. They are so beautifully original. It's like we sometimes stigmatize their efforts and we confine their efforts. We tell them, no, no, this not this color, not this type, not this shape. It has to be this way and not that way. So we are limiting that. And hopefully the new NEP also lets every teacher go beyond what is in the books, experiment, be a little more creative, and let children be creative. So I remember one saying from Picasso. He said that all children are born artists. The problem is to remain artists as we grow up, because somewhere along the line, we forget that. So unfortunately, the present school system, instead of fostering creativity, I think it kind of killed it, because we are so assessment focused, how we test the intelligences, what marks do we have, how many marks. I mean, nobody asks how many marks you got in art or sports or moral science or GK, because they are very secondary. They're secondary because that's how the system has been made. So you are assessing them on certain marks that limits their intelligence, because you can't test a child's intelligence on the basis of just a few subjects. It's far more. I mean, your education and learning, they are two different things. You will see a lot of people who were not able to get education, the formal education, the way we consider it to be very essential. They are doing amazingly well because they never let their learning stop. And there is no age to learning anything for that matter. So when the sad part is that in our present Indian system of schooling, we were focusing only on one side of the brain. NEP is talking about the development of both sides of the brain, which is amazing again, because I'm so much looking forward to that. And I'm not waiting for the NEP, because we've been doing that in our schools. We've been trying our level best that we ensure that children are kind of integrating the art into their various subjects, so that both brains get developed properly. And, the right side of the brain is a determinant of human creativity. It has to be developed. Why should we focus only on the left side? So our effort has to be tap the richness of human capacity. So for this, we need to kind of have a look at the way we are approaching the subjects and the way we take education. Everybody's talking about the 12th standard boards today. Everybody's talking about how the boards have been cancelled and what is the way we kind of grade them. Why should we not have some kind of a robust system that judges their learning, rather than just the grades? The entire situation needs overhauling. And I really wish the higher education sectors also come into play and they think about something like that. So, what is important is that, teachers don't teach what what is important, I think, is that teachers should not teach what learners can learn. And rather, they should be upskilling themselves in a way that kind of catalyzes passionate learning among the kids. I've sometimes seen teachers taking the book, teaching pretty well. They'll teach everything that's there in the book, but it's so boring at times that you're yawning away to glory. So you have to add that fun element that the children in front of you are always up and about. And that happens when you kind of surprise them. So the children need to be surprised on and off. And for that, multiple strategies are required to impart learning. And we need to remember that one glove fit all strategy is not going to work anymore. Children have different ways of learning. You have visual learners, you've got audio learners, you've got kinesthetic learners. You have to cater to everybody. So I was, thinking while I was thinking about this topic, and I thought, and I need to give it a real good thought. One idea came to my mind, which I felt was quite interesting, and I'd like to share that. Instead of homework, if we give home learning, instead of doing some questions from, let's say, somebody is doing economics, or somebody is doing some finance, or somebody is doing some accounts, instead of just copying something from the book, why not give them a project? Go to the real place, work out some modalities where they learn how the things are done. And it doesn't really matter whether they do it in 1 day, 2 days, even if it takes 3 days, it's okay, because your goal is being met. Our students, even in class 12, do not know how to go in the bank and fill a kind of any of the slips over there. They are clueless. And this is what we need to give them, the skills. where the real learning happens. After 12, they are absolutely clueless what to do because we are not giving them the skills to think beyond. So those strategies are required where we let them exercise whatever thinking they can to the best of their ability. So this use of creative elements will be kind of like a reinforcement, and it can be applied in real life. So I personally feel these skills need to be catered more than just the bookish knowledge because that is available on the internet also. You want somebody to study, kids today, they're very smart. So all those kids who are sitting and doing their online paper, what do you think? I mean, were they really honest? Not everybody was honest, and we all know that. So if we think that they're going to be giving their level best, yes, there could be some percent of children who did it, but you can't make this as a parameter of your grading. So learning means learning a skill, competencies, and competencies need to be built. So I don't know, I might be wrong here, but I think if we do away with the grading and just let them be and tell them to learn your subjects, no grading, do well. And then we have higher universities, we have the colleges where we are catering only to that particular subject. So if somebody loves biology, let them go into biology. Why do you have to have a combination with other subjects? Somebody's wanting to do literature, let them do that because ultimately we need all skilled citizens. So we are curbing that by the kind of system that is in place. I think that's criminal. So we have
Great.
to have a rethink on that, especially, realistic. Yeah.
I'll pick up some threads over here
Yes,
because
yes,
I want to give you a little break in between.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You must have a sip of water because so much you have.
Thank you.
Something very interesting I'll pick up where you mentioned entire system needs overhauling.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned multiple strategies are required. And then instead of homework, why not home learning?
Yeah.
And then project-based learning.
Absolutely.
Now, our chamber strongly recommends, first of all, and what is the purpose of education? That is the first sentence. We have to get it. If that is being answered properly, a lot of things will get solved in life.
Yeah.
So, if education is relevant to my day-to-day life, my day-to-day living, whether at home or outside. So right from morning when we get up until we go to bed, we sleep. Whatever actions and activities we take up during the day, let's assemble all those activities and make a confluence and ingredient of all those activities and let the curriculum be based on that.
Yeah.
And that becomes your project-based learning.
Yes.
Right? Second part. You are a teacher. You are teacher. I'm also teacher. And we all teacher. And I've got great respect for all teachers. And she was bold enough to say that sometime you're teaching, you're working hard, you're putting in efforts. But if the child is yawning, child is looking out of window and they're not enjoying, they are telling when this period will get over, let's switch over. So something is missing. And when I basically look at the bio and the CV of Anju Mehta ji, the communication skill when she was talking about, and that is mentioned in her CV. So that means communication is for connecting also.
Yeah.
Connecting heart to heart, connecting soul to soul, connecting mind to mind. And another thing, ma'am, which is missing in our education quite a bit nowadays, storytelling.
Absolutely.
We used to learn so much from our parents and grandparents, Dadima, Nanima, before putting you to sleep. She used to tell a story, and every day you were waiting for that moment.
Yeah.
When will I lie down with her and she'll tell me a story? Why not? Whatsoever we are teaching, it should be based on life stories, living stories, something. What are your takes on those?
Sir, it's like bang on. I'll tell you why. Because today itself, CBSE has come up with a circular that says training program on storytelling as pedagogy, which is wonderful. I think CBSE is doing pretty good job now on. We were, we for 34 years, we needed that jostling. It has happened. Hopefully, I see a better India in the next 10 years. So
Wow.
they are talking about storytelling as pedagogy. And I think that's an amazing way because it helps you to enhance that learning environment. It also fuels that power of imagination and creativity. A big vote of storytelling. And as a matter of fact, in my entire career, as long as I taught, I think I have incorporated so many stories in my teaching, in the real stories, the people, whom children can relate to, and their incidents. So they will always remember that. I get in touch with a lot of my kids, even the ones who already have their own kids now. So they always tell me, "Ma'am, you remember what you taught us in class 11, 10, 9, whatever?" And I said, "Yeah, what was that?" So they're telling me an incident that I must have shared with them. So I said, "Great. So it has had an impact on them. Wonderful." So, I think it stays with them. What you do, what you teach doesn't stay with them. Those special nuggets of information that you provide them, I think that stays with them for long.
Great.
Yeah.
And another thing very interesting. Why don't we bring music in education?
Yes, yes.
Because music for mathematics, music for physics, music for chemistry, music for bio, music for anything.
Absolutely, sir. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, like when you do history for that matter, and you're doing some kind of a revolution, like whether it's a Russian Revolution, French Revolution, you have a dramatic rendition on that. And then you tell the kids, okay, these are the nuances of music that you can possibly take up. These are the dynamics of the music. This is the tempo that you might use when the battle happens. This is how you go. This is so much fun. Children would read and make a kind of a script out of that entire French Revolution. You don't have to rack your head to tell them, no, learn this, learn that. They would love it and they would deliver it. I think children love it when you give that domain of learning to them. They own it and then they deliver. That's amazing. So yes, even for English, I would say like a lot of being an English teacher, I remember all my stories, we would definitely have a role play on that. And we would create so many versions of it. And when we would change the endings and we would tell them, okay, if you want to change the ending that's there in the story, how would you come up with another interesting one? What would be your take? So we would have different groups kind of enacting different role plays. That is an amazing way to let children think that there is a possibility, something else, to perceive it, to see it in another way. So yes, music, great, because children love music as it is, so they love it.
Okay.
Sir, like even in music, I would say if you were to teach them about different scientific concepts, like if you're teaching them the resonance, or you're teaching them frequency, or you're teaching them pitch, why not bring the music? That's how you should be teaching everything. And that's where the planning needs to come. And for that, I think I'm not going to blame the teachers too much, for the simple reason that they need time. They need time to get together as a team, as all, the subject teachers have to come together and they have to talk together, work out together, and kind of like work on a common theme, so that theme runs in different subjects at the same time, and then learning becomes far more robust. So yes, we need to give them time. So perhaps, as in when there are leaders who are trying to innovate, they're leaders. I've seen a lot of people who are doing a good job. They're trying their level best to bring a kind of a novelty in the way education is being perceived. So I think kudos to every one of them. You learn from each one of them every day.
Great. And it's a lifelong learning. That also
Absolutely.
you made mention.
Absolutely.
It's a lifelong
even
learning.
today. So, you've got to keep reading and upskilling yourself, because there's so much new things that are happening. So whether you're doing maths, science, geography, you've got to keep updating yourself. Yes.
Okay. Let's make this session very interesting and stimulating further. Although we didn't discuss about it, I'm taking something off the cuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you share any story which basically in your 26 years long association, career, everything, which must have given you something very extraordinary moments and something while dealing with the kids and teachers or school or institution environment, anything. Let's share something in the form of a storytelling.
Absolutely. Sir, I think I've been blessed. I have always been blessed in the manner that all my students, in wherever I've worked, all the institutions, they're all in touch with me since last 28 years. So they write letters, they come and meet, they talk, they wish you on your birthdays. What better way? They remember your birthdays. And it gives me so much of pleasure. They searched me on the social media. The moment they met, they like I have my first batch, which was in 1998 or 97, I think. And those kids somehow found me on a social media platform. They were in Mumbai. So they all got together and they video called me last year, the entire group. And they are so thrilled, absolutely thrilled. And they're talking and they're connecting like little kids. They have their own kids, but they're talking like kids, you know. This gives you a feeling that whatever you've been doing, I think it is worth its while. Those, sleepless nights, you're working and trying your level best to give something to the kids so that it, you're not just a teacher, you're a person who's going to touch somebody's heart and somebody's life. And it's a very noble profession. And I think I personally feel very strongly about it because I love when teaching, when kids are there and they're being wonderfully recipient to whatever you've been teaching. And as far as teachers are concerned, I've had a very good rapport with them, touch wood, and we're all hanging out together on and off. So it's been a good stint, I would say. Yes, there have been some kind of ups and downs, but that is always, there. The thing that I'm blessed with is, yes, my children are my best, you could say, earning as such. The respect that I get from them, that's the best thing that I can say I've earned in my entire stint of education.
Great, wonderful. Let's give a tip today to children on communication skills.
Absolutely.
How can they improve their communication skills in a very pleasant way, while enjoying, while having fun, while having stimulation? Let's give some tips to kids today, because today is the session of power of learning. I would also like to pick up something and something interesting. Let's work on to that, ma'am.
Yeah. So I think when we talk about communication, there are some notions that parents have when they come into an education sector. So they say that, we've given the kid to you. So for 6-7 hours, they're going to be there. Now you teach them. Now that doesn't happen, because for the rest of the 17 hours or 16 hours, the child is at home. So you have to give them an environment whereby they are kind of like listening. They need to listen to the language that they have to learn. And I think children at a young age, if you communicate with them in whatever language, and I'm not saying only English, because you need to know your Hindi, you need to know your English, you need to know your vernaculars, but whatever you're learning, you need to learn it properly. So again, I would say I was a convent educated child, but sir, my Hindi in academics was very good. But today somebody asked me the difference between the matras, I would not know, because my teachers perhaps did not focus too much on that. I realized that today, that this was also a way where you could teach the matras and it would have stayed with you for a little longer. So I think children need to communicate in the language, no matter whether it's right or wrong, because it's the fluency that matters. Accuracy comes later on. What I would tell any child who would wish to improvise English, because being an English teacher, I would say read a lot. I think reading should be one skill that they should pick up when they're very young. I don't want the parents to force the kids into reading this, that, good, bad. There's no good, bad. There's no, I think the brain, there's no good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and there is an untrained memory. The more you read, the more you kind of build up on your Lexile score. So the more vocabulary you kind of partake of. And then don't just read and share. Parents need to make sure that whatever the children are reading, whether it's a comic, whether it's just a storybook, whether it's a novel, whatever, they need to discuss, what did you like in that? What would you change? Do you endorse whatever was there? Different questions, a little kind of a game. But another thing I would say is, parents need to be role models themselves. You want the children to read, you read yourselves first. So if you've never touched on paper or a book and you're always glued to the television and you expect a child to be with the books, it's not going to work. You have to be the role models. You've got to be having that culture of reading where everybody sits for, let's say, 30 minutes. Not a big deal, just 30 minutes. Sit, talk, don't talk, read. Just read and pick up anything. And then I think, as parents, they need to take the kids to libraries. Yes, sir.
Does the louder reading help?
Yes, sir. I think it does. Because for some kids, it's good to hear the voice. I would not personally say because I don't I like the silent reading. But then I think I've seen some of the kids where we were training them that some kids like to read loud. What happens? They try to modulate the words and the intonation modulation that also works. And if you're encouraging the kid to love his own voice with all the ups and downs of the pitch, it can work out wonders. So we definitely tell the kids to record. You've got the phone, record your voice, play it out and see how many times you use those fillers of ums, so you'll know whether you need to improvise there or not. So yes, these are the things that work out. Reading, there is nothing that can beat reading. It kind of opens such a wide ambit of horizon. And then it also makes you see perspectives from other person's point of view. So your understanding of things becomes so much better. So when your understanding becomes better, I think you can converse and communicate on that. Your confidence becomes better. When your confidence becomes better, I think your competency increases. So the more the competency increases, the confidence becomes better and you keep building up on more competencies. So it's a cycle that keeps on going on.
Okay.
So yes.
Again, does music help in learning a language?
Absolutely so. Absolutely. I tell the kids to watch musicals. I tell them, go watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Go watch Sound of Music. Watch all these, My Fair Lady. Watch these things. The music makes them go fluent in the words that they have. I think children today are very smart. They can sing beautifully. They pick up those, English songs so well. And some of them, yes, they do pretty well. But yes, it's a very good way of doing it. It's amazing. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. That's something very interesting. Then you also used a word, strategize to build capacities.
Yes, sir.
Would you like to amplify a little bit more on that?
Yes, I would say strategize in the sense when you're teaching something which is a little difficult. I always encourage my teachers and my staff to, whenever they find something which is tough or which needs a little deeper understanding, go in for brain mapping, going for concept mapping, going for some kind of a visual, sketch of that thing that would stay with them and tell them to paste it, tell the children to paste it. So what happens in one glance that stays with you and you get the gist of it better. So simple, small strategies. This is one strategy. They can, for example, when drawing is a great way. I'm a great votary of drawing, visual art, and they can draw whatever. For example, so when you're talking about trigonometry, so how do you kind of strategize that their subject is better taken in by them? I think if you kind of talk to them about how you have to map the distances, if you don't tell them what is it used for in the real sense, they'll say, kya karna hai? Why should we study trigonometry in the place? Kahan ye theta, angles, vagera, sara kahan aayega? So the thing is, we have to make them realize that this is relevant here. Every bit of what you're doing, it's going to be integrated in your life. Somewhere along the line, you will be making use of all these in this field. So I generally used to tell my kids, because they were very frank and very open, and they would discuss a lot of things, and they would say, ma'am, why do we study this? So I would spend good 10-20 minutes telling them everything. They would never question after that. So they would love to go ahead and they would read it. So yeah, that I would say different strategies in that sense.
Great. So we come finally to the finale, because it was such a wonderful listening, you, each and every word. And, I'm saying you have given so many valuable inputs, ability to learn quickly, art of attention, art of observation, strategies to build capacities. Learning should be continuous process. Learning should become joyful experience. Learning by doing, and then global and local you mixed and you made local, out of box thinking. And we are so assessment focused, which we have to get rid of, because with all our audience world over, we would like to share there are certain countries where up to 12th standard you have got only 3 exams.
Yeah.
But it is India where you have got on the average 112 exams by the time you complete your 12th standard, including your class test, your monthly test, your quarterly test, your half yearly test, your final test. It is something, when I have gone through and the entire analysis when we have done. So something got to be done, 28 education boards in India, and you've got 112 exams in India. Why can't we get rid of all that? And what you rightly said, that entire system needs a overhauling, multiple strategies got to be adopted, and the home learning concept to come instead of homework. And why not to have a project-based learning? And you talked about something dramatizing also, and give the domain of learning to students. And of course, just now the visual arts, what you have mentioned, that is also again very, very relevant to today's education. Now, finally, ma'am,
Yes.
before we close today's session, what would you like to tell students? What would you like to tell parents? And what would you like to tell our fellow colleagues, our teachers? Something to all three of them.
To teachers, I would always say, always be a step ahead of the students. Don't let students catch you on the wrong foot. You need to be smarter than them. For that, you need to work a bit. And it's the easiest thing. So, everybody has 24 hours in a day. So if you say you do not have time, I don't believe it, because I'm working through and through from morning till night. But I do kind of like juggle out every activity. But in the process, I know what is the priority, what my priority or what my integrity towards my profession is. So I have to be true to that. So for that, I will take time out. I will work out a little to make sure that I know I'm in the right direction. So I think teachers are amazing in India. I think they are doing a great job. All kudos to them. I've had my staff working day in, day out. They did such an amazing job. And I've personally told each one of them, I'm so proud of them. But, and this, I mean, not to offend anybody, it's just that sometimes if the child comes home and says class sucks or it's boring, it's a big comment on the way we are kind of giving the education. That should not be there. And children are smart to see through that. Parents, I would say, don't leave entire learning only to the education sector. You are equally responsible. So you have to be great role models. You have to be the first teacher of the child, as I would say. The first teacher, because what you do, children emulate. Children are going to emulate everything that you're doing, either at your home or with other people, vis-a-vis the relations or whatever. So be good role models, be ideal parents in the best possible manner that you can, so that children also learn the life skills and the values and the morals that are so very important to sustain them in these uncertain times. And for my children, I would always say, never stop doubting yourselves. Keep going that extra mile. If somebody says you can't do it, take it as a challenge, prove them wrong, and do it. And
Wow.
that's how I have grown up. Anybody who told me, if you can't do this, I proved them wrong, I did it. And I've always felt that has stayed with me till date.
Wow.
So take it as a challenge. Yeah.
Take it as a challenge, that's something. Yes. And finally, kuch kariye, kuch kariye, kuch kariye. Every child, you have to do something innovative and something nice. Golden triangle, madam has drawn: parents, teachers, and children. That means the youth and the students. Now we all are the part of the triangle, and everybody got to take on the equal responsibility. So wonderful session with Anju Mehta ji. Great going. Our best wishes to you. All the best for your future ventures, your innovative ideas, creative ideas, pragmatic ideas, ideas, futuristic ideas, whatever you want to say and whatever you want to bring in your institution and the education ecosystem. All of us together, we got to move on that. Ladies and gentlemen, before we close today's session, I would just like to once again share with all of you today's session, 971st webinar. That's a Friday, 11th of June, with Anju Mehta ji, the principal, DCG International School, Patiala. It was wonderful having her. And I wish to tell all of you tomorrow evening, something very interesting at 5 p.m. Do join us. Effects of the global warming on the water resources. And you will have Colonel Dalvi along with Singapore, our chamber head, Anil Manocha ji. And after 5 p.m., 7 p.m. will take you to Ayurveda for the global wellness. And that's going to be something very, very important for all of us. And tomorrow, how to cure the black fungus, because this is troubling people quite a bit. We have taken on the agenda. Dr. Parmeshwar Arora, the leading Ayurvedist, will talk to you. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow evening from the Fortis Mohali, you will have head of the department for the vasculars, because a lot of people post-COVID, post-pandemic are having vascular disease and vascular problems in their bodies. And right in my family, I myself have experienced that particularly your calf muscles, your veins, and, there has to be a ballooning, there has to be an opening of the pipes, and sometimes the stents are to be put over there in the vascular system. So tomorrow we are going to talk about how to take care of yourself post-pandemic era, particularly when the vascular disease are coming in a long way. Do not forget to join. Dr. Jindal has just returned from UK, and I requested him. He's going to be with us, and he's going to discuss with all of us. And he's an international ambassador, American, the Venice Forum. So he's going to be with us tomorrow evening at 8 p.m. Like today, you have Anju Mehta ji, all the great celebrities and the big people we bring at 8 p.m. So tomorrow, do join us, because this time suits everybody. Because people, those are in Canada, early in the morning, they're holding their cup of tea and coffee. In America, in Latin America, people, those are in entire Europe Union, they just finished with their lunch and they join us. And people, those are in Southeast Asia, before they retire and tire and they go to sleep, they are with us in entire Southeast Asian countries. Evening is still young in the Middle East and Central Asia. People do join us from there. So great thanks to everybody. Do join us tomorrow, and we are going to have a great deliberations, all of us together. With these words, once again, our deep gratitudes and thanks to Anju Mehta ji for having joined us this evening. All the best wishes. Stay blessed, stay healthy, take care of everybody. Keep empowering the humanity with your wonderful, creative, beautiful thoughts which you are giving, and making education relevant together, all of us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Green morning, green afternoon, and green evening.